Good morning. Paul, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. It's a real thrill for me to stand before you this morning. Real honor. I know a lot of you, born and raised in this town, and I think our best days are ahead of us. I'm very excited about what I'm seeing more on the pro-business side than what we've seen in past. Before I kind of get into what I want to talk about, let me tell you a little bit about XL Industries. It's in a town called Heston, Kansas, just north of here, just outside Newton. The company's been around since 1960. We've been building zero-raise turning mowers for over 50 years. We build the Hustler as well as the Big Dog mowers. We have almost 2,000 dealers worldwide that we support, as well as we have entered into the mass retail market, and now we sell in Lowe's stores. And we've got about over 650 stores that we're currently providing product to. It's a privately held company by the Mullet family. It's a real pleasure working there. We have done a lot of amazing things over the last few years. I'll kind of get into that as we kind of talk about how to build a competitive advantage in your company and kind of where you're going. Oh, and I'd be remiss, our latest product is sitting out in the auditorium. That's our new utility vehicle. We are entering the utility vehicle with what we call the maximum duty vehicle. You're probably thinking, oh great, they're going to try to compete with John Deere, as well as Polaris, as well as Kawasaki. But at XL, we come up with things that make people's lives better. One of the things we did was we focused on the bed, the part of the vehicle that does the work. And we have 4 patents that's going to be on this level lift product that you're going to see out in the lobby. And it'll lift 750 pounds off the ground and put it right up on the platform. And nobody in the industry has anything like this. So innovation is our DNA as a company and what we do. Zero-raise turning mowers was the first. And I might mention, we were the first zero-raise turning mower that was ever built. And we're growing that business pretty dramatically. So with that, we're all in a rock fight. My suppliers hear this every year. In fact, our owner, one of our owners, Paul Mullet, our CEO and president, actually went and got a big rock up in Montana and put it on the desk. And we remind all of us in the management team that we're in a rock fight. At one point, he handed that rock out at the supplier conference. It come back about a third the size it was when it started. People were taking pieces of it, and they kept a piece of it because it helped remind them that we're all in a rock fight. People say, well, that's a tough market to play in or work in. But hey, where isn't it tough to compete? And so you have to be thinking every day, how are you building competitive advantage? What are you doing to beat the competition? And we talk about every day that we don't like coming in number 2. We want to be number 1 at what we do. And so I would challenge each of you to be thinking about that every day when you walk into your respective companies, about how you're leading and what you're doing. So Paul talked about this a little bit. This is kind of the centerpiece that we look at. There's really 5 areas that we focus on. And for sake of time, I'm going to touch on a couple of them. And so with that, let's talk a little bit about strategic planning. We have a poll question. So you can pull out your phones again. Very simple question. Does your company currently have a strategic plan? That's good news. Because to me, that's the first step of figuring out where you're going. Somebody told me years ago, you can have a bad plan, but if everybody's pulling the same direction, you're going to have some success. There's a lot of companies I've talked to over the years that did not have a strategic plan, didn't know where they were going, didn't know where they wanted to be in 4 to 5 years, didn't know what they wanted to be when they grew up. And so this is vitally important about what you're doing. And so I'm glad to see that all of you are doing that, because that really helps you. And I would encourage you not to just put it on the shelf, but to really regularly review it with the leadership team and make sure everybody in the company knows what the plan is, because that's how you're going to grow success. This is just a simple chart, basic strategic plan. Excel put a strategic plan together about 4.5 years ago. We really didn't have one in writing that was up to date at the time. The company was doing about $150 million in revenue. 4.5 years later, we're approaching $500 million in sales. We recently just sat down and rewrote our strategic plan for the next 5 years. We're planning on growing the business twice as much as where we're at today. Telling you the power of a plan is really important, and also keeping everybody focused. And I've heard it and read it in books, but I really firsthand seen it in a company like Excel, and it's a powerful thing. So I would encourage you to think about that as we progress through the day. Okay, let's talk about supply chain here a little bit. I've been in some of the BREG meetings, and one of the main conversations I keep hearing is we got a lot of companies that are kind of struggling in this area. How to manage their outside suppliers, how to really drive a competitive advantage. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit at high level, kind of basic supply chain 101 stuff. And then we're going to have a little bit of a panel discussion and kind of take a little bit deeper dive. For the sake of the conversation this morning, supply chain management, depends who you kind of ask, there's a lot of different definitions of it. But for the sake of the conversation this morning, let's focus in on the supplier interaction or activities involving design all the way until the aftermarket service piece of it and everything that goes on in between. I think co-development with suppliers and working new technology and innovation is hugely important. And we have taken on kind of the Toyota Honda supplier relationship management approach, not beating on the table, asking for lower price, but asking how can we add value working together and do those kind of things. So why are we talking about supply chain? Well, studies have shown that over 50%, if you look at somebody's cost of goods sold in a manufacturing company, over 50% is material. It's things that you're buying to put in the product that you're doing. At Excel specifically, we're over 70%. So it's a pretty significant piece of the cost of goods sold. There's also another piece of this that I think needs to be pointed out. A lot of companies I've worked in, as well as I've talked to people over the years, well, we're just going to increase sales. That'll improve our bottom line. When in reality, you may get a dime off every dollar revenue you may receive, but if you really drive your supplier costs and really work that piece of it, you're going to actually end up putting the dollar to the bottom line and improve your profitability. And that'll help you invest. That'll help you invest in automation, innovation, and in your people and what you're trying to do. So it's very vitally important. So the adage that I tell the folks at Excel, and they repeat this to me repeatedly, one is you make money when you buy, you don't make it when you sell it. But the other one is competition is no longer company to company. It's supply chain to supply chain. And whoever has the best supply chain will win every day. And so that's something I just want you to kind of take away and think about, because it's vitally important to the way you're running your business. And each of your businesses are different. This may not apply to you, but I have a pretty good feeling most of you this applies to, because it is a pretty big driver in your cost of goods sold. So when you're looking at your organization and their activities and their focus, I kind of like to say there's companies that do what we call transactional focus, what I call 3 bids in a cloud of dust. They don't even know what they're buying, don't know who they're buying from, don't understand the cost structure or should cost. They're just bidding it or they're shopping it. That is not going to make you competitive longer term. You really need to work towards what I call a supplier relationship management process that really integrates with your suppliers and really makes them part of your business. So let's just touch on that a minute. All of you should have received a copy of our brochure. This is a brochure that we hand out to our suppliers. And so if you want to try to figure out how to go to sleep one night, just pick this up and try to read it. But there is a lot of good information in there. I think you might be able to take some nuggets out of this to help you manage your supply chain and ask your folks that are managing your spend and spending money in the company every day, how are they doing it and what are they doing? These type of things. And this stuff, basic 101, WSU's teaching it. A lot of other major universities are teaching this kind of thing. But it's not easy. It's just not placing orders or getting the lowest price. It's understanding what you're doing and what you're spending and what value your supply base is adding. So with that, just for sake of time here a minute, I'm just going to kind of step through this. There's really what we call a four-phase process. One is you need to rationalize your supply base. You need to understand who you're doing business with. Are they the best ones you could be doing business with that's going to help you stay competitive? Number two is you probably want to contract with them. You don't want to be bidding stuff over and over. You want to try to have some kind of agreements so that you can move to number three, which is really improve the performance that you're seeing, from quality to delivery to cost to inventory to whatever you need to be doing. But the fourth area is really where you're going to see the most value. That's when you integrate the suppliers into your business. That's working with engineering directly on early supplier involvement. That's actually having suppliers on your factory floor. That's having them involved in Kaizen events. That's doing all those things as well as a lot more. That's where you're really going to see the value. It's really going to look at cost versus just squeezing price out of them all the time. And that's not the kind of relationship you want to have longer term. So with that, I think that's a pretty nice introduction to supply chain management. I'm going to invite the panelists up here, and we're going to take a little bit deeper dive. The esteemed forum panelists that we have this morning are from OEMs as well as Tier 1s. We've even got a transformational leader in our midst that has been willing to participate in this. I'm going to just take a moment and say a few words about each of them, and then I'm going to have them talk specifically about what their company does and a little bit about themselves and whatever else they want to share. Maybe take 2 minutes apiece just for sake of time. Our first panelist is Austin Peterson. He's President and CEO of Carlson Products. He's been there since 2013. Prior to Carlson, Austin was corporate attorney at Mayer Brown LLP in Chicago. Austin has a bachelor and master's degree in business from KU and a law degree from the University of Chicago. He doesn't act like a lawyer. I actually do business with him. He's a really good guy. But anyway, Austin, if you would just take a moment and kind of share a little bit about what your company does.
But we also manufacture products for other industries. As it relates to supply chain, all companies are doing it on a journey the last few years in terms of how we operate as a supplier as well as our own supply chain. And it's sort of a seminal moment in this step market. We're kind of forced to change the way that we operate. We're doing new product lines too, but if you've ever been to a facility, or franchise, you make that fly back to the franchise. We were pushing out about 200,000 units of one product through those systems. And at that point in time, as a smaller company, we honestly didn't talk about supply chain. We had a person, and it really was, do this, get it out. And so we got bids, of course, with the lowest price, and it was just a nightmare. The supplier missed all the people that we paid. We spent more on overtime to get the product out on time than we paid in the period. At that point in time, that's really when we got together with our team and said, hey, we got to change the way that we do business. We have to be more strategic about this. And, as a supplier, and with our vendors, integration has really been a key driver for us. And we've been fortunate to have great customers like Excel, like Pizza Hut, that really believe in supplier integration. And what we've found is that we've learned a lot from that. And the more integrated that we can become with our customers and the more we can integrate our suppliers, the better the performance is. When we understand their strategic plan, we can better meet their needs. So we're continually trying to move away from that arm's length transactional relationship towards one of integration. And that's how we're trying to build lasting partnerships with our customers.
Thanks, Austin. Our next panelist is Jerry Cucaruta. He's a supply chain manager for Westcon Controls. He's an experienced supply chain professional with expertise in enterprise requirements planning, systems and implementation, utilization and right-sizing inventory to improve on-time delivery while increasing working capital in high-tech aerospace and automotive industries. Jerry might share a little bit about your company.
Okay. Yeah, I work for Westcon Controls. We're located on West Street. We were recently purchased in September by Superjet. They're an Indian-based company, and they're a $200 million company. They do automotive as well as outdoor equipment. They bought us for entering the U.S. market. They didn't have any presence here in the U.S. They have 15 plants in India, one in Europe, and now us here, and we have a footprint in Juarez, Mexico. Some of you might have our products in your garage, whether it's a snowblower, a lawnmower, a golf cart, maybe. So it's the cables that maybe operates the engine or the drive mechanism or the choke. Those are the types of products we make here. Superjet makes cables that go into cars. You'd be surprised how many cables are inside those panels. 20 or 30 cables could be in there. Some of our customers are Excel, Johnson Controls, EasyGo, MTD, Toro, Harley Davidson. Those are our larger customers. I've been in the supply chain management for the last 30 years. I was in California. I worked for American Racing Custom Wheels. We did OEM for Chrysler and then aftermarket wheels. And then I worked for a remanufacturing company, motor car parts and accessories. We did starters and alternators. Did 15,000 of them a day. Pretty large. And then for the aerospace, I worked for Tyco, made components for aircraft. Then moved up a level, worked for Goodrich, making engine nacelles. And then finally Cessna here in Wichita. The last 13 years I've been working for NetApp. We made data storage systems. Some recent improvements we made. I've been working for Westcon Controls for 6 months. Recent improvements, we lowered the material cost by 3% and improved our inventory turns by 15%. It's a company that's gone through a transition of private owned to an equity owned and now to a company that, Superjet bought us for strategic reasons. So the supply chain needs a lot of work, a lot of low-hanging fruit, so I'm working through all that.
Thank you, Jerry. Our next panelist is Chris Hebert, Director of Operations for Collins Group. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing? Before I do that, you've held various roles in manufacturing while using lean principles and industry best practices to reduce operating costs and gain efficiencies at Collins, which is in South Hutchinson. So you might take a couple minutes.
Yeah, good morning. Name's Chris Hebert. I work for Collins Bus. We build Type A school buses. You've probably seen a lot of the smaller school buses running around town. We built the entire Wichita School District fleet for First Student. When I started with the company, there was a turning point, much like Austin discussed, where there was a very, very messy product launch. I had happened to be a supervisor with the company at the time and was able to see these things unfold firsthand, and now being in a position where I can do something about that and do something with that. I'm using my own trials and tribulations to help focus my strategies and what we can change and what we can do different. Innovation in the school bus industry is very, very rare. Collins, we really try to push that envelope. We've developed slide-out battery trays and innovations that don't exist in other school bus manufacturers. There's convertible storage walls inside the vehicle and just several different innovations that we bring to the market. Because of that, it requires new products, where the school bus industry buys most of its products, most of its parts and supplies, is very limited in some regards. Not so much on fabricated items, but more purchase components such as lights and mirrors and things like that. It's a very, very small marketplace. So when you go and you shop suppliers like that, your options are very limited. You've got major mirror manufacturers that have kind of cornered the market. Your choices are very limited. So it drives us to really invent new products with our suppliers, invite them in to our facility, and kind of co-engineer these parts that go into our bus now. We talked about innovation, we talked about strategy. What I've learned from my time at Collins is that if you're not working alongside your suppliers, and you're not working with them to develop your products, then they're not going to get behind you like they should. It should be a cooperative, it should be a partnership in order success for all. So it's been a good journey, and we're still going.
Thank you, Chris. And our last panelist is Mark Eaton, president of Southwood Associates. Mark's a certified public accountant who most recently served as president of Great Lakes Polymer Technologies, a plastic manufacturer in Kingman, Kansas. I got to know Mark a little bit over the last few days, and Mark's got a lot of background, a lot of experience. I'm really glad he's part of the panel. Go ahead, Mark.
So I do a lot of work on portfolio companies of private equity groups. In the last 4 years, I've run a company out in Kingman, Kansas. It's a plastics manufacturer, makes plastic twine and net wrap for baling hay, as well as plastic fiber that goes in concrete that replaces wire mesh in concrete. There are 2 plants out in Kingman, and then one in Albert Lee, Minnesota, and another in Jerome, Idaho. One of the things that we emphasize out there is that business it's a team sport, and that everybody has to play off the same playbook, which is the strategic plan and then the annual operating plan. And nobody can operate in a silo. It has to be a matrix organization. To use a football analogy, if it's a passing play that's called, the offensive line has to know it's a passing play, so they block correctly. The wide receivers need to go run their routes. The running backs need to block. Otherwise, it just falls apart. And emphasizing what everybody's role is in the strategic plan takes it's a constant reminder. We had set up on a daily basis a stand-up meeting where we brought all the 4 plants in together via WebEx. And being a manufacturing company, the base of that was about the scorecard for the prior day's production, what went well in the plants, what did not go well in the plants. But we also made sure that customer service was represented in there, supply chain was represented in there, accounting, IT, so that if an issue came up, everybody was aware of it. And if we couldn't resolve it in a minute or 2, we could set up who was going to take it offline and come back the next day with what had happened and what the solution. One time we wound up having, in the prior day, a particular plant ran out of material, so they had to, on the fly, adjust the production schedule, which causes a lot of problems in the whole manufacturing. As we dove into that, what we found out was that the bill of materials was incorrect, and so it was not using the proper amount in the inventory system. Therefore, the inventory records were showing too much, so supply chain didn't know to go order more. And then we looked into why didn't the cycle counts pick that up? It was another one of, oh yeah, that's something else we need to get back on track. So we emphasize constantly that it's a team sport and everybody's got to play their position, and everybody has to understand what the other position contributes to the team and how their position affects the other part of the team.
Thank you, Mark. We're going to go ahead and jump into some questions. You guys already touched on the first couple we had written down, so I'm going to go to the third one we had on the list. What key skill sets do you believe are critical in managing your suppliers and your overall supply chain? as well as suppliers. Austin, you want to take a shot at that one first?
Yeah, sometimes it's simple, but it doesn't happen all the time, and it's communication. Also the ability to kind of simplify some more complex objectives, but where we run into trouble with our suppliers, and sometimes it's our fault because we're just not communicating quickly enough or accurately enough with them. And we always have a plan, but plans change, and that has to be communicated quickly and accurately to our supply base.
Good. Jerry?
Personal and professional ethics. When you're dealing with suppliers, that is very critical, that they're honest and have that integrity. You have to be a very good communicator with your suppliers, especially, and inside. So let something goes wrong in your supply chain, you got to communicate that inside to your factory. Total understanding of that supply chain is important because if you press a lever and make a change somewhere, what is that affecting with somebody else in the organization? And if you can bring those people together and work things out, it's going to be much smoother. They're going to accept it better, and that's a key skill that I look for, is that total knowledge.
Good, Jerry. Chris?
Yeah, communication was mentioned, and I personally had the problem with silos, breaking down those silos so that you can open up your organization to work together. I think a lot of traditional purchasing managers don't realize the bigger picture of where it really has to start. Where does supply chain management really start, and who needs to be involved and at what points? So getting that big picture across to the whole organization and making sure it's cross-functional is key, and is a good attribute.
Good.
I'd like to add to that analytical problem solving. If anybody's read the book Moneyball, that was I'm not sure if it was the beginning, but part of big data and using analytics to solve problems. And when it comes to supply chain, it's no longer the 3 bids in a cloud of dust. It's no longer about being emotional or being the better negotiator. It's about going to the whole supply chain, so vendors as well as or customers, and talking about networking capital, how I can reduce their inventory, how they can reduce mine. It's cash conversion cycle, and taking data to people and making it into a win-win situation so we can all, I want my vendor to be successful because I want them to be my partner and there for the long term, my customer the same way with me. So I think analytics and analytical data solving problem is another skill set we need.
Good. Let's go to our next question. Besides lower costs, what's the most important deliverable from your customer's perspective that your supply chain must deliver? And how do you achieve that goal? Jerry, do you want to take that one on first?
Sure. Our customers are pretty tough. They want short lead times, quality. We book 6-week lead times, but a lot of times they come in and say, I want it in 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and sometimes next week. So we have to build that into our supply chain. We have to carry some safety stock to make those sorts of things happen. We're vertically integrated, so we have screw machine department, we have punch and shear, we have local suppliers that plate. So we can turn something pretty quick and deliver it to our customer, and that's why they keep coming back to us.
Good. Chris?
Yeah, so lead time obviously is the biggest component. The school bus cycle is up and down, and it's I call this time of year a nominal year because it's not summertime. As soon as school districts and contractors know what they're going to do, the orders come in, and it comes in all at once. So we've got to have suppliers that understand our cycle, and a lot of times that boils down to lead times. We source a lot of things locally because it inherently just brings down the lead times. But we've also come up with creative solutions on how we can combat lead times with maybe suppliers on the coast. Can we locate an assembly station closer to our facility? Can we do some things? Can you come into our facility and set up shop, and creative things like that? And that, again, that's part of working with them as a partner rather than just taking a bid.
Good. Mark, any thoughts?
As we ask customers either why they selected us or what it is they like about us, we get a generic response about you're easy to work with. And when we start peeling back that onion about what is it that makes us easy to work with, a couple of points come out is, one, customer service. We've got a very knowledgeable customer service department. They know the products, they know how they're made, they know the customer's needs. So when a customer is calling into customer service, they can get their problem solved rather than I'll take a note and call you back. And the other thing that we do, not on all, but a couple of our business units, is vendor managed inventory. And that cuts down the lead times, it cuts down the amount of inventory they need to carry. And from our customer's perspective, makes us easier to work with.
Good. Austin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd say reliability. You know, our customers need to know that they can count on us, whether that's on-time delivery and quality. And I mean, the easiest part of our business is when we're working on an extended forecast and filling orders on a schedule. But there's always going to be those times from any customer when things don't go to plan, things have to be rushed, dates have to be changed, and that reliability that our customers know that we can react to those unexpected changes, and that flows through to our supply chain and having them ready for the unforeseen events.
Good. I've got another couple of questions I want to ask them, but before I ask that next question, if you have any questions you want to ask, you might be thinking of that, and we'll try to take questions from the audience. I might as well just stir it up here a little bit. Thinking about the recent election, do you see your supply chain sourcing locations dramatically changing from outside the U.S. to domestic? Who wants to take that one on?
I will.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, we have a significant presence in Juarez, Mexico, and we're actually moving even more there. Trump hasn't stopped us. We hope that it goes our way, but only time will tell. And you talked about things we need. Screw machine is a part that we can't find the skilled labor for that. So I wish we could find a place that would train screw machine.
Well, I'm sure this place, the training center, I'm sure we could find somebody maybe to help you out, Jerry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jerry. Chris, do you have anything? Mark?
Yeah,
any thoughts?
We source primarily in the United States, mainly due to some of our abilities to sell or for government funded projects. We're just recently getting into the commercial bus business, and you're going to see airport shuttles and different things come out of our business, and that's in part to help offset our seasonality. But the big push is for the Buy America program, which drives us to buy more in the U.S. So I don't see that changing.
Okay. Mark, any thoughts?
So plastics, it's resin and labor, and the resin that we use is all U.S. labor, the same. What I'm interested in seeing is most of the competition is import, and seeing how the future administration will affect that.
Austin, any thoughts? Got anything to add?
It's sort of to echo what Mark and some of the others said. I mean, we source all of our products pretty much 100% domestically, all of our metals from domestic mills. But it'll be interesting to see what happens on the competition side. You know, already talking to some of our customers that do get some things made overseas and are starting to more seriously look at, well, how do we bring that stuff back to the U.S.
Good. Okay, let's open it up for the audience. Do we have any questions? You guys are an easy girl. Okay, we got a question here in the back. We got a couple.
Yes. 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 So the business out in Kingman was started by Exxon in the mid-'70s because the resin comes from the petroleum process, and they're vertically integrating. And so as the industry went from wire and sisal is a natural fiber wire, to plastics, it was the location was convenient, and there wasn't a lot of some of our import competition is from Asia. China, South Korea, which is recent, sort of copycat. The other is from Israel and Portugal. And so the businesses here in the U.S., of which there were several, were some of the first in this country. But now, as time has moved on, and I guess the issues that we're all talking about, and that President-elect is talking about, labor becomes more expensive, and freight becomes cheaper to put it on the water and bring it over. The imports have come in harder.
Thank you. Got another question? I saw a couple of hands. Go ahead.
As a part of the supply chain, we would be a supplier for you guys. Those things that you said are so important to your company. How do we show you that it's important to us also, other than just telling you?
I think interfacing, being a part of shop floor events, being whether it's co-developing products, whether it's understanding the needs from the operators on the floor. I mean, just being involved is a great way to be a good partner.
One of the things we do on the concrete fiber side, our customers tend to be large Fortune 500 companies with large R&D departments. And so I make sure that my R&D department meets with them regularly, and they know each other's cell phone number, so that when a customer has a problem, they view us as a resource. And for my vendors, I want to be that sticky to my customers, and I want my vendors to want to be that sticky to me. And my R&D guys, they do those things on their own with customers, but they also partner up with a lot of universities, because universities have really smart people that do a lot of research. And so as we come up with something, we take it to our customers and to our large customers and give them an opportunity for exclusivity for 12 months. And I want my vendors to want to be as sticky to me. And as they develop new things, and I'm a major and an important customer to them, I want them to come to me and say, I'm working on this new technology, you guys use it a lot, what can we do about exclusivity for a year?
We'll take one more question because we're out of time. Go ahead.
I'm kind of an IT guy by background. My question is, how do you see information technology helping you or hurting you, or what needs do you see you to integrate your supply chains and all these processes that you see you need with your suppliers?
Jerry, you want to take a shot at that one?
Our company recently installed Sightline about 2.5 years ago, and they went from a culture of a really old system to a new one. And not everybody embraces that. So it takes the company to invest in some training, for one. And they need to understand all those little buttons and switches and things in the background that can be applied to your system. And then in our company, they don't know what they don't know. And it takes people that come in that know the system and can help educate them as well. You're never going to have the ideal situation in IT. We still operate on spreadsheets. I'm sure everybody does. But you got to pick the right modules that fit and integrate with your system. We have a quality system that doesn't talk to the Sightline system. So someone picked that for whatever reason, and it's not working for quality. So somehow the IT people in quality need to figure that out ahead of time rather than after the fact. He's trying to make it work, and he has to stop it and shut it down.
Statement of work's real important. Staying focused on what you need to be doing. Software is not a strategy. That's the thing I tell people all the time. It's got to fix your problem. It's a tool, and you need to understand what it's going to do for you. Really appreciate everybody's attention. We're out of time for this session. I personally want to thank our panelists. If you would, give them a round of applause.